So, long story short, how do I become a CEO?
Welcome to Long Story Short.
Michael Copeland, welcome to Long Story Short. I'm just going to give everybody a quick overview of your incredible career just to help set the stage for our discussion today. So, you started off as a corporate and commercial lawyer with one of Canada's top business law firms, Blake, Castle and Graydon. Following your time there, you then got a little bit of international experience working for Deloitte Consulting in Australia before taking on senior leadership roles with Boston Consulting Group and as the director of Molson Coors. You then shifted towards the more sporting and entertainment industry, where you served as the president and chief operating officer of the Canadian Football League, as well as becoming the president and CEO of the Toronto Argos,
Woo, go Argos!
where under your leadership they went on to win the Grey Cup. Following which you served as a senior advisor to the CEO of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. You now currently serve as the CEO of Copeland Sports Consulting, as well as the CEO of Woodbine Entertainment. And as a result of your incredible career, you were recognized as one of Canada's 40 under 40 to watch. When you look back at your career as it evolved, did you find that your movements from one position to another were like a direct result of saying, okay, I gave this a shot, but I want to try and pivot a bit more and learning more about yourself and what you wanted out of your career? Or did they each kind of come up organically and you just followed the path as it unfolded before you?
It depends at which stage. Probably in the later stages when you get more established, it comes up a little bit more organically because you're sort of committed to a specific area and a specific
Mhm.
industry, and your skill set becomes a little bit more refined. But even then, there's variation, and I certainly have had some of that. But I think at the beginning, it wasn't clear what I wanted to do and where I wanted to do it. Uh, I started out practicing law, um, like many people that are, work in sort of the early stages of as an associate. Um, People are trying to find their way and to see if it's a good fit for them. Both in terms of the environment and lifestyle and subject matter, and I was no different. So I think there was a few years in there where there was, self-searching and reflection. It was a terrific experience for me, but um, I did a bit of a 180 coming out of law and went realized that I was very interested in the strategy and the reasons why the clients were coming to the law firm were the things that most interested me about the files I was working on. And I learned a lot by I was in the banking area, so I learned a lot working on large structured financings, and certainly the technical ability was shaped, but the passion for me was when I got a file and I sat down at my desk and I could close the door and I could read what the client wanted the funding for and what their vision was. So that caused me to think
Mhm.
about, well, I think I may need to change directions and go on a path that I didn't originally anticipate. And that's when I went back to do my MBA. So I'd say that I was it's not always, you don't always have certainty. It's not always a direct line. And it certainly wasn't for me, but as long as you're sort of self-reflective and bold enough to sort of make change when it makes sense to do that, um, I think it'll lead you ultimately to the right place.
I think that one of the things that I really picked up on and resonated with what you had said was that, there's things that you're going to try and just things might go well, things might not go well. You got to just kind of keep forging forward. And obviously, you've had incredible success in so many different industries. But one thing that I can't help but think is, were there ever times where you made a mistake, either in your personal career figuring out where you wanted to go, or on the professional side in one of your many roles of leadership, that you thought to yourself, there is no way I'm coming back from this? And if so, how did you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, or even your company that you were working for, and keep going?
Um, Yeah, I mean, sure. Like lots of times where there's things did not play out that the way you'd hoped. I mean, I think I never really thought that I'm personally never coming back from this. I probably thought it was going to be really difficult, but I'll have to find another way. I might not, um, I might not have expected to have this level of challenge. But I'd say, the one example I'd use is our first year with the Toronto Argonauts. So at the time when I came in as CEO, the Argonauts had just been purchased by Bell and Larry Tannenbaum, who are or were at the time two of the three owners of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. So the Argos were independently owned by Bell and Mr. Tannenbaum, and we set up a new franchise, and having the resources and experience and stature of those owners, uh, combined with the fact that we were moving the team into BMO Field. So for the first time, professional football was going to be played in BMO, which is a spectacular environment. Um, I had a lot of hope and expectation of major success very quickly. And we leaned in really hard on our opening game at BMO Field. We sold it out, 25,000 people. It was incredible atmosphere. Um, and then it really came back to reality very quickly that the challenge ahead of us was way more pronounced and deep than I think any of us expected. And it was difficult to rebuild the fan base. Our team finished in dead last in a nine-team league, and there was just not a lot going well. It was sort of a series of challenges, and there was every opportunity to sort of credibly lose hope and think I'm not going to be part of this. And so I think at that point you step back and it's like, okay, you know, I'm not really developing the brand as the wonder manager who's going to come in and in a short period of time turn this all around. Um, But then it's like, okay, well, what do I do with this situation? Like you can either, like the couple of things I've said is throughout that's guided me throughout my career is like there's one way to guarantee failure, and that's by just not trying, right? Like you know the result if you give up and don't try. And it worked out well in some fronts. I mean, we turned the team around. We ended up in first place. We did a pretty significant overhaul in terms of our operations and leadership, and we won the Grey Cup, which was a great ending to that second year. I think we were starting to turn around the fan experience. It was a big battleship to turn around, so we didn't get all the way there, but we started making some progress in some areas. So it was a little bit of a proving out that sometimes patience, or oftentimes patience, is a virtue. But there were definitely some lean times. It's funny. Another part of that situation was when you think of questioning your own decisions and what have I done. There was one particular moment where in the spring of our first year, we uh, well, spring of our second year, you go into a period of the off season of football where a lot of the football roster decisions are made and team decisions are made. And I had made the decision to change our leadership on the sports side, on the football side. We went into some key periods, notably the draft, without without a general manager, and I decided to go on a different path to sort of determine who our next organizational leaders are going to be, our next GM, our next head coach. And it took some time. It took some time to sort of go off the normal, timeline, the normal people that you would look to. I really wanted to sort of see if doing it a different way would perhaps be sort of a better way. But I just got pounded by the fan base. Like I was dithering. I was, didn't know what I was doing. I had no experience. I felt very comfortable that the people I did continue to have in place were the ones that were going to carry us through. Um, but I really like took it on the chin in social media and mainstream media, and that required some thick skin because these are very experienced
Yeah.
people, very knowledgeable, super passionate, that were just they had their minds made up, and at that point I didn't know how it was going to turn out, and you do sort of question your decisions a little bit until you see the outcome of them. I mean, luckily in that respect, it ended up um, in the best of all possible ways. We did have the turnaround that I was looking for, and we did ultimately win the championship. But there were some times there that was difficult, like publicly
Yeah.
difficult. Um, but it's good to have gone through it. I'm
Absolutely.
glad that I can tell the
Uh,
story the way I
And you made it
am
to the
here,
other side.
hoisting the trophy. But
I think the Leafs are learning very quickly that Toronto has some very passionate fan bases. So I can imagine how it must have been to be on the receiving end of that.
I really like the concept of the only way you're guaranteed to fail is not trying. It's
Yeah.
like my favorite quote, you miss
Yeah.
100% of the shots you don't take.
She says it all the time for
I
about
put it in all the
everything.
emails when we ask guests now too.
There is something that I wanted to ask you about because I saw a video of a speech that you gave. I believe that it was Western University a few years ago, where you talked about your time at the Canadian Football League and how when you first took over in a leadership role, the organization, I think you had described it as a tire fire. There was a lot going on. Some teams had gone bankrupt. There was a lot of internal governance and ownership issues. And I just wanted to ask you about that because when I think leadership changes in any organization, it's very rare that it's because things are going well. Normally, there's something going wrong. So, if you could speak a little bit to your experience of how you get into an organization like that and then figure out, okay, what's the problem? How are we going to fix it? What do we tackle first? Where do we go from here? Because I think being a leader in crisis is really what, shows the true merits of being a leader.
I think that I mean that approach, there's a sort of the consulting and law sort of framework and approach is all over that of, what's the problem, what's the solution. Um, I think it's just being mindful about what you're trying to achieve and what the benefit is when you achieve it. Like what's believing in the outcome and being just firmly um, committed and resolute that that is the place that I want to be and I want the organization to be in. And I think that helps you navigate through crises to say, because there's going to be times where you're challenged, there's going to be times where things don't work the way you want. Being flexible and open enough to pivot through situations as they develop. But if you stay sort of really truly firmly focused on what the outcome you're trying to achieve and why it's good, um, that's the motivation you need to just kind of push through all of the different factors and scenarios and things that pop up. So I think it's just having a clear mind, what your motivation is, what your purpose is, what your objective is, being patient, not being emotional, not getting frustrated when things don't work out exactly the way that you might have originally planned, because they won't. Um, and just sort of taking time to say, are we getting closer? Like, is what we're doing getting closer?
And I think I wanted to, so I love horses. I've been doing dressage for the last 4 years. So I wanted to hear more. How can young people get more involved with like Woodbine, everything that's going on there? I think our viewers would be really interested to know more about that.
Woodbine is a really kind of old, traditional, rich, historical business and entity, and Woodbine exists to support the Ontario horse racing industry. That's the mandate. The King's Plate is our signature race every year, which is the Canadian Championship for 3-year-old horses. We just ran our 166th King's Plate, so it predates Canada.
Yeah.
It's the oldest stakes race of its kind in North America. It's older than the Kentucky Derby.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's lots of history, lots of tradition. And that is a benefit and it's a burden, right? It's a benefit because you get a rich kind of foundation that's built around you. And it can be a burden if you sort of rely on history and tradition and the ways that things were at the expense of what they should be now. So I think, the challenge is taking all the good parts of what's happened before, but not being afraid to change and not being afraid to modernize. And so I think that's what we've done fairly successfully and continue to do. Woodbine does a spectacular world-class job in terms of quality and of our races. We want to continue to create that emotional connection, and the ways we do that are through the physical association people have with the horses, but we can now amplify that with social media marketing and engagement. And we have a commercial tool that's going to allow us to monetize in a way that people are now spending money on entertainment. So digitally, quick transactions, ease of use. So that's how we're sort of trying to be relevant to who are the younger demographics and how they want to engage with the things they choose to engage with.
I
We have
mean,
to catch a race now.
yeah, I know. I think you sold us as far as I'm concerned. We're going.
So long story short, how do I become a CEO?
The the first thing I'd say is believe in yourself. Um, and it becomes easy as, to as you start your career, there's a lot of uncertainty. You haven't experienced a lot of things. The perspective you have on others that have accomplished things, might not be that well developed, and you start sort of looking at yourself potentially as a little bit glass half full or glass half empty, I guess. And you do have the ability to do great things, and so I'd say just believe in your abilities, and if you expect and understand that it's not always a smooth path, and although that we may be exposed to stories where it seems like people have develop their careers without any challenges, without any hiccups. If that is in fact true, it's unbelievably rare. And I'd say 99.9% of the people have gone through ups and downs to get to great places. So just believe that you can get there. I say the second is be resilient and focused, push through those difficult times, accept that things may take a bit longer than you may otherwise want. But the true objective is to ultimately get there. It's not necessarily how fast or the way in which you get there relative to others. So it's just be patient and be resilient. I think that's how you can become a CEO is believe in your abilities, do something you love, and expect that it might not be a straight line to getting there.
It's such a beautiful message to end on.
Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you both.
Have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you next time on Long Story Short.
Catch you next episode.